Hello to all of you wonderful moms out there. This is episode 67 of the Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life podcast, the show where you learn to envision, plan, and take action on your big ideas so you can create impact at home and at work. I'm your host, Anoki Kabasi. So this is part one of an interview that I had with Lesley Alberts, host of the Grounded Mama podcast. And during our interview, we talked about how nervous system dysregulation can impact us high-achieving moms. And guys, we dove really deep into conversation, and that's why I had to split it up into two parts. In this part one, we also talk about the hallmark signs for nervous system dysregulation and how trauma-informed somatic coaching can actually help you regain that balance because it actually rewires your brain. You're changing the neuroplasticity in your brain. It's super fascinating. And actually, you can take the information that you get from this episode today and start using it because Lesley also shares simple grounding techniques that can help all of us stay on track with our ambitious mom lives. We even explore things like the relationship between self-discovery and emotional balance, how slowing down is not really failing, and the importance of focusing on options rather than expectations, especially during major life transitions or when you find yourself in survival mode. So get ready for this eye-opening interview. Are you looking for a way to blend success and motherhood without losing sight of who you are? I get it. I've been there too. Hi, I'm Anoki, a PhD researcher, business owner, and homeschooling mom of two boys. As your life coach, I help moms like you create a life you love at home and at work. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed, overscheduled, and overlooked, and want a clear roadmap to a balanced life, a meaningful career, and finally feeling like yourself again while being the awesome mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this journey to create the life you truly desire, it's time to rediscover your dreams and achieve your ambitious mom life. All right, so welcome, Lesley. I am so happy that you're here. I feel like this was a long time coming because we've been in communication for a while, but there's been a lot of changes going on, and I know that you've been getting a certification and you rebranded with your podcast and stuff. So I kind of want to hear all about all of that stuff. I do have questions for you and I want to kind of dive right in, but at the same time, I just would like to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself a little bit the way you want. I'd love to hear what's going on because I don't know the full scoop yet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Anoki, thank you so much for having me as a guest. I feel honored and privileged. I really am so grateful to be here. And you're so right. It has been a long time coming with the both of us being in a class together. And gosh, that was last fall or spring. I can't even remember when we originally connected. But yes, I feel like mom life, it just things will resurface and come up and be reprioritized in a way. And it does. It always comes back around. So yes, kind of just embracing the chaos in this current season of motherhood for myself. I'm a mom of two little boys and I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, currently single parent or solo parenting, I should say. My husband's a wildland firefighter. So, and then I do work a 9-to-5 as an agricultural real estate appraiser. So I appraise farms and ranches, mostly for lending. So it's one of those seasons of just embracing the chaos and going with what each day brings and being able to adapt and pivot. So, and yes, I am in the process of becoming a trauma-informed certified somatic coach. So that is really exciting and something I'm spending a lot of time on right now. I do have a podcast called the Grounded Mama podcast.
Yes.
And that was rebranded this winter. And I'm really excited to get back to it. It is on pause for now, again, with all of the things, all life things going on right now. It is a passion of mine. It started as a passion. So really excited to get back to that when the timing is allowed. So kind of like this interview, we had connected and then kind of lost touch and then reconnected. So I know the podcast will be coming back up when I do have a little bit more space in my schedule.
What I love about what you're saying is that you're giving yourself permission to just do it the way you need to do it, to let things happen and you can pause, and a pause doesn't mean failure. I'm pretty type A and sort of the perfectionist type, and my listeners are sort of that high achieving, goal oriented mom types who had a lot of, success and career oriented prior to becoming a mom. So there's a lot of adjustments and shifting as we prioritize motherhood now, but wanting to also keep that accomplished part of ourselves in there. And a lot of times we won't take action if there's a chance that I won't be able to follow through or fully do it sort of the perfect way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You're a living example that you can do something and kind of figure it out as you go, or to let, the natural rhythm kind of, take over basically. So
Yeah.
I just really like that. I mean, do you have any more thoughts on that? Because this is a huge struggle in sort of
Mhm.
my world.
Yeah. And I'm right there with you and your listeners. Like I was an absolute goal oriented achieving person before motherhood, right? Like I had the marathon, or I did a bikini competition one year, or I, getting my certification for my current job. Like I got that done in a really proficient amount of time. And I have always been that high achieving, overachieving woman. And then I feel like motherhood is such a journey, and it really teaches you to slow down and really trust the process. And it's kind of like in the early stages of motherhood when people say rest when the baby rests. I remember rolling my eyes thinking, who's going to get the dishes done? Who's going to get who's going to do all this stuff that I've always done and I'm very
Mhm.
efficient at and high functioning
Mhm.
at. But by the time the second came, I rested, and I'm still learning to transition from that go mode, that overachieving mode, to the just being with mode. And I
Mm.
think being available for the experience is something that my kids have taught me through and through, and just learning life through their eyes and being
Mhm.
present and slowing down and being intentional has really, I'm learning from them as much as they're learning from me, and so I
Mhm.
think that's a big part of it. And I think there is so much there's so many shoulds in this world, and there's so much fear, guilt, and shame instilled with productive, and if you're not doing, you're not achieving. But
Mhm.
then you look at our kids and they just want to go play in the dirt, or
Mhm.
be in the grass and feel the texture on their feet, and like that's
Mhm.
grounding. And so I think if it wasn't for my kids, I wouldn't have transitioned into this more grounded mom, this more
Mhm.
present mom. And
Mhm.
to be okay with, again, being available for the experience and tapping into that creative center of myself. And like little Lesley, like what did she enjoy as a kid, so it's really been a transformation unfolding over the past several
Mhm.
years.
That is so awesome. I feel like when you were saying or talking about that example of grounding, I think you mean that like literally grounding as well
Yes.
as more conceptually being grounded, regulated nervous system. So that was really like a great visual. So now when I think
Mhm.
about like I need to be grounded, I could literally sometimes just having a specific action. I could literally go outside, take my shoes off and stand on the grass and be like, okay, I need to get grounded. And then do all the other things that come with being grounded. I love that. When you were talking about connecting with your passions and just the stuff that you like to do, that is also so much a part of what I kind of the first step that I help my moms with in their life planning journey. I don't know how familiar you're with life planning, but essentially I help kind of unfold this roadmap with my moms. I coach them through this whole process of self-discovery, I think is actually very grounding because you start asking yourself questions about what your passions and interests are, and really even cycling back to your past and
Mhm.
reconnecting to who you were even from childhood or pre-mom life, then thinking about what you enjoy about life right now, what's great in life right now, as well as what you're looking forward to. And then I link that all together. I help them link all that together. And
Mm.
that is basically their life plan. And it's not a plan where it's so rigorous and regimented that you feel restricted and like, oh goodness, I can only live life this way. It's actually a plan that brings you freedom, and it offers you ways where you can, like you said, what would little Lesley like? So it's not a step one, do this, step two, do that. It's not that kind of restrictive plan. It's aligning yourself to
Yeah.
the things that are going to make you feel more like you. And I feel like that's kind of what you do too, but through the nervous system. So it's just like such a great compliment when I think about it. So I'm going to take a step back because I'm going to be quite honest. I actually don't know what it means to be a trauma informed certified somatic
Yeah.
instructor, coach. Could we just start off with that actually? And can you tell me a little more what you do and what that particular field of work is?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you as high level of an answer that is as tangible as possible. But basically, I've kind of fallen into this work, and I do feel like it's part of my life's journey and a huge part of it that again, if I wouldn't have said yes to it, I wasn't anticipating it. So I think those are the best parts of our lives it's like something that's not really on our radar, but it's like, oh yes, this is actually really calling to me. So basically, a trauma-informed certified somatic coach helps people process their stored stress responses in their body over time, from big T or little t trauma or stressful events or circumstances, and basically help just kind of free up some of that capacity in their body. So everything that happens to or for us, however you want to look at it, it is as stored as a stress response in our body. If it is a traumatic event, or you were bullied at school, or your grandma said mean words to you as a child, or whatever it could be, those things help develop our inner critic, and they're stored in our body. So it's something that is a process to help you really walk through releasing that trauma, releasing those stored stress responses, because we carry those with us throughout our life, whether we realize it or not. And breath work is a really great conduit in order, to help and to be mindful. There's so much of this nervous system regulation work. It is the nervous system. So it is really helping you regulate to be in ventral vagal, to be in a neutral. You're not super stressed, but you're not super depressed. You're not down in a depressive mode. So it is, again, part of my guideposts is what I call it, is these guideposts in life, kind of like your life map. It's like, and I love adventure. I love nature. So I'm really about the journey and wayfinding your way back to your nervous system. So wayfinding is kind of navigating your way back. And
I love it.
So yeah, it's been a process, and it's still kind of unfolding. That's why I have paused the podcast for now, just because I don't know the direction. I am so passionate with this work about moms, and something you said about the life map. I started a podcast because I became a mom, because I wasn't able to have the social time I had when I was single or when I was newly married. So knowing that I had something inside me, connection and community, that was missing, and I was really grieving. Becoming a new mom that was also solo parenting in the summer months. Really, that's why I started a podcast. So I think just leaning into our intuition, leaning into those breadcrumbs has really got me at least where I am today with, the somatic coaching process. And it has been an unlearning for me to not be so type A. And like when I show up for a session and do a coaching session, it's truly about where the client's body wants to go in the session. It is truly agendaless. I'm there just to hold space. And even when I was doing the podcast before the rebrand, people said, you hold such beautiful space. I feel very safe with you. And if our nervous system doesn't feel safe, we're going to have our guard up. So there's just been these little breadcrumbs along the way that that it's been leading to. So it is pretty wild as I unpack or look at my life map and be like, oh, that makes sense now. So
wow, there's so many things that you said that I'm like, I have follow-up questions on. So it sounds like you're adding consciousness to the unconscious almost, because it sounds like these traumas we're not aware of, but then you're helping people identify these things that might have been traumatic for them, and then helping them release that, right? Is step one like identifying, and then the subsequent step would be to release?
Yeah. It's a lot about awareness and willingness. That's where it starts. Yeah. And kind of like our kids, this is just, again, kids are such a great teacher. They are witnessing everything we're doing. Like they're just like, we're almost like a live movie for them, right? Like they're just witnessing how we respond to something, how we do something, like a gesture that we will make in the kitchen when we're cooking or whatever it could be. They're emulating everything that we do because they're receiving it. So it's not learned, it's just witnessed. And so it's kind of like that. Like some of these things that we've picked up on, and as adults, we're like, why do we do this? Or why do I do that? I don't even know where that came from. Where some of this stuff is subconsciously learned or unconsciously learned. It's not even consciously like metabolized and learned in the brain. So it is an interesting process to unfold.
I was just curious if there is a positive complement to that. You're storing stress, introduced through small or big trauma. Is there a complement where we're storing positive experiences that can counter these? Because I know that you talk about releasing the stress, but is there also filling that up with positive experiences?
Yeah, there are a few practices that we do and that I've learned through my program. And one of them is kind of because as humans, we feel like pain and danger and suffering, like we associate bad with those things, right? So where can you maybe hold space in your memory or in your mind of something very wonderful that's happened to you, and something that brings you joy and happiness. And then if you can hold, a space in your memory for something that's been more painful or more traumatic for you, and kind of just like start to slowly metabolize between the two of them, because, our brains, we can only have one thought at a time, but we can hold multiple emotions at a time. I am a biblically grounded mama. And so there's so much scripture that supports this. We don't take our emotions with us when we leave this earth. And God gave us this full range of emotions to have. And we want to suppress the bad and just like focus on the good. But how would we know what is good if we don't know what is quote unquote bad? The sad, the sorrow, the grief, we wouldn't be able to experience. There are some practices that we can do to kind of metabolize that a little, like kind of blend the two, like hold both and
balance it.
So I would say I had a relatively easy childhood, and I say that in quotes, but it wasn't until after I got married that we had a lot of survival mode traumatic events. We had 4 of the top 5 big life changes happen in the first 12 months of marriage. So it was, and some of it was pretty traumatic. So it was just something that really rocked my boat, but I'm so grateful for it, because I wouldn't be here where I am today without that hard season.
Yes. And I listened to your episode way back when we first connected, where you had just rebranded and you'd kind of you had basically told the whole story of that. And I forget what that episode number is, but whoever's listening to this podcast, if you want to kind of relate a little more and understand what Lesley's talking about, just check out her podcast, because she has an episode where you really just kind of lay it all out. And I could feel the sincerity, you were really digging in deep, and I could feel the emotions. I just wanted to reach out and hug you as you were talking.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great episode. So I'm also curious though, how would someone know, what are some signs that they kind of need this kind of coaching, or that their nervous system might be dysregulated? I think we might know it sort of intuitively a little bit, but are there some telltale signs that, hey, you might want to get some additional help?
Yeah. And, disclaimer here, none of this is medical advice or in replacement of medical advice.
Of course. Agree.
Especially as a mom, I think in today's world, so much is expected of mothers and whether you are home with your babies, kind of a mother, and homeschooling or taking care of your babies, or you're working a full-time job and you're a mom after hours. It is such a demanding, it's the best, hardest thing I've ever done. But I think society, I want to feel like we're kind of shamed or belittled or just expected to do it all. I think especially after COVID, there was that era of where moms were working from home, teaching their kids on, helping with Zoom. Anyways, it's like there was so much put on us, I think, in that era. And I don't think it really got shifted, but like it never rebalanced back. And again, me, and this is just my perspective, and I'm a single parent right now. So I don't have 40 hours to dedicate entirely. I have to get 40 hours done in less time in my 9 to 5. So because I'm doing these other things and wearing all these other hats. So for me personally, I'm going to use just very elementary words here to have a better understanding, to tap into that awareness. Stress, overwhelm, anxiety, overstimulated. You feel like your head's going to blow off because your kids are, there's a lot of noise in the background while you're trying to make dinner and your kids are making a mess in the living room. And like, it's just like that too much stimulation coming at you at one time, that can be a very big, and it's often, and you don't know how to get off of a loop, or if you start noticing patterns like, oh, when this happens, I feel this way. What is causing that? So that even can be a sign, maybe something happened to you in your childhood or in your teenage years or whenever, it doesn't matter. That is it's triggering an old you, not your current you, or you don't have grounding practices in your daily routine, whatever that might be. And I know moms have very limited time for themselves. So it has to be made a priority. Just like on an airplane, they ask you to put your oxygen mask on first for a reason. And I think a lot of moms have been conditioned to believe the kids need to go first. My husband, like, it's absolutely backwards and it's absolutely wrong. And so that's what I'm here advocating for. And I'm here to tell moms it's okay to put yourself first.
I love it. Yes, that is so important. I feel like I've had other conversations on this podcast where the conversation has come back to that particular point. So it's just, I guess it's a message that really just needs to be told and heard. Yeah, that's so important.
Add to that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because And the reason why, if especially I feel like type A, I need a why behind some certain things to back it up. Your kids will co-regulate, which means they will feed off of your nervous system until their prefrontal cortex is mature, which for boys, it's in the mid to late 20s, and girls are a few years earlier. So why it is so important is when you walk in that door stressed at the end of a workday, or you're frustrated because you have lack of support in the home or whatever it might be, your kids are going to sense that and feed off of that. Because again, kind of like the witnessing piece that we talked about, it's an energetic response. Our kids are literally vibrating with our nervous systems. And if all we're doing is feeding them this stress and anxiety 24/7, that's how they're going to show up in the world, in school or whatever. Like it is, and it's not intentional. We're not doing it on purpose. But again, just having that sense of awareness, like, oh, this is why it is important for me to put my oxygen mask on first. So it's kind of like a ripple effect, because it's going to ripple outwards.
I don't know if this is a good example or not, but what I think of is, even today, this can happen, but especially when my kids are younger. I have two boys as well. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. Especially when we were parents of our first child, so we hadn't had our second yet. It's the new mom syndrome. Actually, this applied to both my husband and I. We were both kind of working around with kid gloves and stuff. When your child falls or gets hurt, they actually generally are okay. They might even think it's funny or whatever, and they'll pop right up. But what would happen with us as being new parents, we would be like, oh goodness, are you okay? Let me see, let me kiss it. We make a big deal about it. And even if we're not actually anxious about it, for some reason, that was our go-to reaction, to just be like, oh, we want to be great parents and be there for you for every little thing, right? And so I think what would happen is, anytime we exuded that kind of energy of concern, it always resulted in an anxious response by my son, right? Then he wasn't worried, and all of a sudden he'd be like, oh yeah, and start crying, or, make a big deal about it as well. And when we just kind of let it roll off and let him deal with it, and we would take the signals from him. If he felt okay about it, then we would just not make a big deal about it, right? Yeah, his reactions were a response to our reactions, if that makes sense.
No,
and so I don't know.
Example.
Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, even back to our childhood, and our parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, they all did the best they could with what they had. But the phrase sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. That's absolutely not true, because it's again, maybe there was some place in, whether it was in your new mom journey, that you were conditioned, I have to, of course you're a nurturing, loving mother, but to say things or to move towards your son in a way of urgency when it is not even a scraped knee. It is definitely that witnessing, that pattern that is now and still, being formed, and you can break it. It just it's changing the neuroplasticity in your brain, and it takes some work, but it can be done. And I think, something I'm very careful with saying to my son is, be careful, because I don't want to instill that fear or that apprehension or that cautiousness. He's going to have to learn through his own life's experience. I don't want to be there navigating and directing that for him. And a piece about what you said about falling, it's important to be there, and nurture your babies. But it's also important for them to learn how to regulate themselves. And if they are especially I have a 3-nager right now, so that's been a process, but is he safe? Is he okay and I want him to be able to fully express himself and not hold that in. So it is being the container to hold space for them in a way that is safe, and they feel secure and nurtured by you. But, and sometimes this is just kind of to wrap this part of that up, but we have been conditioned, and as I've learned this process myself, there are certain things that my nervous system is not safe feeling when they're having that experience. I feel activated. Verbally, realize it or not, say, stop crying. Well, that is not healthy. We do not want that stored stress response in our child's body. If they need to express themselves, let them in a safe environment, in a safe container. And again, sometimes we haven't dealt with our own stuff as parents, and we're not able to hold that space because we're feeling dysregulated. It's that co-regulation. We're sensing this buildup from our kids that they're going to about ready to have a tantrum, or they hurt.
Yeah.
So
it's more about us sometimes than then. Yeah.
Yeah. We can't handle. So our lid gets flipped, our prefrontal cortex goes offline, and then we try and handle it or suppress it, or try and manage their emotions for them, when it's not our job to manage their emotions.
Yeah. Especially if we're ambitious, we're always about being productive and just getting the job done. We're also problem solvers and fixers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So often, like that, all of that kind of goes hand in hand often.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of times when my kids are having problems or just having a hard moment, I want to fix it for them. That's my
Mm-hmm.
go-to reaction. I have to kind of consciously step back and just let them see how resilient they have to prove to themselves they can be resilient too sometimes.
Yeah.
But I know that most of your work is actually for the mom
Mm-hmm.
part of the equation, which I love because that's kind of like where I am also sort of working with. So I wanted to ask, because so many of my listeners feel like they've lost themselves in motherhood, and I know a big part of your work deals with identity. That is a big thing we tackle with as well on our show. And so can you share how the nervous system regulation has helped you or your clients reconnect with who they are? And, just outside of just being, I don't like saying this, but like just being a mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I put that in quotes because I don't want to belittle this awesome role that we have. And I mean, for me, at least, I think of motherhood as my role as being a mom is the biggest blessing that I could have
Mm-hmm.
ever had. Like I've wanted it for as long as I can remember. So I don't mean to downplay that part, but sometimes there's other parts of us we also want to tap into. So that's why I put that in
Yeah.
quotes.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's more of a rebirth of who you are when you become a mother. It's like almost a rite of passage,
Mm.
just like becoming a grandparent. You have to get through this part to become a grandparent. I hear being a grandparent's awesome. But
I can't
I
wait for
think
that.
I know. I'm like, oh, you get to send them home. You get to sleep in, it's great. But it's almost like a rebirth. It's a retransformation of who you really are because you learn so much about yourself when you become a mother. And I think it's a beautiful experience. And again, I
Mm,
think it's up to courageous women like yourself and I to flip the
mm,
narrative, right? It's
mm,
really truly about rediscovering who you are when you become a mom. It's a gift and it's a blessing. Whether you're a physical mom or not, like it's in
mhm,
all of us, right? And nurturing is a mother's, like, it's just an inner knowing. It's an inner trait of
yeah.
most all women, but it's kind of hardwired in us. And this is kind of where I very much into this work is because our nervous system is one of the first things that is formed after conception. I think it's like up to
Mm.
like by the 6th week in the womb, our nervous system is already done. And it's like those
Ah.
first 3 years is from conception to 3 years old is when our nervous system is being hardwired the most. Like that is like, it's just wild to me. And being biblically grounded, God made all of us individually who he's called us here to be, our purpose here on earth. And like, it's all different. And like you said, I want to learn from you. And I think it's great having a learning mentality because being a lifelong learner is such a beautiful gift and a blessing. I am that myself. But to also honor your gifts and what you've been called here to do on this earth
Mhm,
and be here
mhm,
and for your purpose. Right. And so I think identity is such an important role of that and discovering that. It wasn't until I went through this really hard time in my life the survival mode season that I discovered my identity. And so it wasn't just
mm,
becoming a mother, but it was also this survival mode. So there's a book, I can send it to you if you want to add it to the show notes. It's called Living
mhm,
Fearless. It's by a man named Jamie Winship, and it's exchanging the lies of the world for the liberating truth of God. And it's such a transformational book to get a glimpse of God's aerial view, like
mhm,
of, again, like bigger picture, wholeness, oneness,
mhm,
abundance versus this 3D scarcity world that we live in, every
mhm.
day.
Yeah.
And emotional leader is what was called to me in spring of 2023. So this was before the podcast. This was coming out
Mm,
of this very dark season. And emotions it's part of your nervous system. So that's why I
mhm,
started to talk about emotions a little bit.
mhm,
So it's just like, oh, again, following the breadcrumbs, following these pieces that he's
mm,
given to me when I'm ready to receive, when I'm able to hold the
mm,
container, hold that
mhm,
space to receive that information.
mhm,
He is our father. He is our protector. He knows we're not meant to do this alone either. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question about identity, but that's where the source of identity, it's how we're wired. Like like our nervous system is like our control panel to our entire body in like a very
mhm,
elementary way to explain it. And
mhm.
so it's part of our identity. It's part of who we are individually. Nobody else has the same, we all have the same structure, but it's not the identical same.
Yeah, I just want to expand on that or explore that a little bit because the way I approach my work is I want people to be able to align their lives to who they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So their time, their energy, their
Mm-hmm.
relationships, like their resources and finances, all of that. I want it to work with who they are. So that's why we go through the self-discovery phase. That's where the identity part kind of gets established in our exploration, at least, of that.
Yeah.
And then I start helping them, in a very practical sense, like with managing their time. all these systems and all things like that after we've developed the life plan. So we establish their values, their vision, their purpose, all those things get outlined. Then we go to the like nitty gritty daily systems and habits and routines. And I align that all to that. So is it the regulating your nervous system and being grounded that allows you to fall into your identity or be who you need to be? Or is it the other way around? You need to kind of figure that out and establish your identity in order to be grounded? Or is that like a really sort of circular question? I'm not sure. I'm just kind of would like to hear your thoughts on that.
That's a great question. That's an amazing question. And I love that you asked that because it makes me think, because I think it's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
Exactly. I know. That's why there may not be an answer. I just am curious because for me, I have a linear path that I guide my moms to. I'm not saying that's the right way. I'm just, for me, it makes sense that way. But for me, the identity comes first and then the sort of the energy part. I'm curious though, with your version of coaching, how that works.
Yeah. I mean, from like a very foundational level, I think they are both one and the same as we are born into this. Like, I feel like we're born with our identity and our nervous system, simultaneously together. When you're discovering it, I think that's your own life's journey. And I think that's kind of a beautiful experience, right? Nervous system regulation and learning the somatic practices that I've been learning through my program and then helping my clients through that I'm working with right now is what is yours and what is not yours, or what has been stored in your body that doesn't serve you anymore. We've had there's a lot of parts work in this somatic work. And like my 13-year-old self has some hardwired beliefs and values that, or, in my 13-year-old brain that have stuck with me since. And again, some of them were to keep me safe then as a vulnerable teenager, in a public high school where there are mean girls and, all the things but
absolutely,
those don't serve me anymore. So being able to bless and release some of those things that have kept me safe for a period of time or duration of my life no longer serve me. So I think it's kind of an unfolding process, but I was given the emotional leader. God came to me and I had never heard him speak to me. Like this was my first prophetic experience in my head. It was a deep voice and I was shook by it. I was like, what was that? I Googled it. Some things with Brene Brown nothing came up as an emotional leader. So I was just like, that was March of 23. So a whole almost 2 years later, I'm rebranding my podcast to The Grounded Mama. Last summer, I had a very intense anxiety attack I don't carry a lot of anxiety usually, but it was something that shook me out of my body that I was like, what is happening? What is going on? So that was like a breadcrumb of the nervous system work was last summer. So, and again, single parenting, camping by a lake, there's environmental like danger. My brain was like alert. There's, safety. It all comes down to safety and what you feel safe in. So I do think it's kind of a beautiful immersion of both of an unfolding process, but I was given my identity before I discovered the nervous system, but I did intuitively follow the breadcrumbs.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting. I like that breadcrumb concept. Honestly, in the end, it doesn't actually matter which came first. It's more about the journey. Yeah. And so, just as long as you get to that awareness part, that's the important part, because then you have some strategies you can there's something you can do something about, right?
Exactly.
So actually, on that point, if we're going to sort of be a little tactical here, what are some simple grounding techniques that ambitious, busy moms could incorporate into their daily routines to help them feel more regulated or content, I guess, made present? Yeah. So I'm specifically thinking about when you listed those, you said simple language words, the anxiety, the overstimulation, all those words. I hear all those words when I hear from my community. And often that gets kind of packaged into overwhelm. I'm just so overwhelmed by all the things, right, that I have to juggle. Sometimes there's burnout as well involved with the kind of like trying to always achieve and also feeling unbalanced. There's a lot of requests for how can I find balance in my life? So I don't know if I asked the question clearly. So what I'm trying to find out is what are some simple grounding techniques, and the reason I'm asking that is for all those things that I just listed.
Yeah. No, that's I can elaborate and be very. I'll start off with some grounding techniques that are super tangible, bite-sized, and I would invite your listeners, your audience, your clients to take to take inventory. It is a lot about awareness and like being in touch, in tune with your body. Our mind is a tool. It does not run the show, even though it wants to think it does. And it is part of this whole system that God gave us, our entire body. So I think just leaning into the awareness, even by starting off like, what is the temperature in the room? Like, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it breezy outside? Like just getting into the present moment is the first and foremost thing, and tapping into that awareness with your surroundings.
Is that mindfulness? Because I do a lot of mindfulness with my kids, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff in there.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's just getting into the present versus like getting up here, because our mind is never, I mean, it takes a lot of work to make our mind present. It's always forward thinking or backwards thinking. How am I going to keep myself safe moving forward? How am I going to run from the past, or, avoid what happened back there and keep myself safe? It all comes to safety, right? And our mind is a tool to help keep us safe. It's a great tool, but we need to learn how to manage the tool better, to put the seatbelt on it and put it in the back seat versus the driver's seat. So, but just again, awareness is first. So getting present with, and then you can do an easy 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's all your senses. Yeah. Basically, it's like 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So it's really just getting back into your senses. And again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's super easy to remember. And then literally going outside. Nature is the best. It's the best tool. Like it is. I can't recommend it enough. Like I said, going barefoot in the grass or going for a walk with your kids. Try and leave your phone at home unless you don't feel safe without, like you would need to call somebody if you didn't feel safe. But yeah, I highly recommend limiting the technology. We have an RO box. Really just like when you get home, put your phone in the box and have that sacred time together, or be very clear with your technology boundaries, at least, or set it up for what works for your family. Some people work night shift or whatever, but honestly, the biggest one for me is silence and solitude, especially in the morning. I have been eating up every morning, sitting outside, watching the sunrise. The sun is always going to rise in the east and it's always going to set in the west. So knowing something that's going to be consistent and constant, you're tapping into nature, but you're also sitting in that silence and solitude. Yep. I know moms don't have a lot of time for that, but if you can really prioritize that, whether that's even getting up 5 more minutes earlier than you do, just to have that time for yourself, just to do like a full body check-in before you start your day, can really move the needle in such a huge way. Am I feeling more tired today? Am I getting ready to start my cycle? I mean, women are just, I wanted to say this in the beginning. We are just amazing human being body animals. Like we are just beautiful things on this earth, and we make life inside of us. We have this cycle. We don't function on a 24-hour basis like men do. So I think getting in touch with your cycle and giving yourself permission when you need that nap or you need to rest. Please, if you need to come back and listen to this for permission, I give you the permission, because I think sometimes as high achieving moms, we don't give ourselves the space and grace or the permission to enjoy, to rest, to receive. And I think that's something, again, that I'm really here to change the narrative on, because it's all a bunch of BS.
Those are such great techniques. I feel like I would be an A student of yours because I think like I use a lot of those techniques that you were saying. And my favorite is having my coffee in the morning, going in the garden and just sitting there and just observing the garden, like, because it changes, so rapidly. And so that's really fun for me. And sipping coffee is one of my favorite. Like I love the entire experience of the warmth, the smell, the taste, everything about it, like having something to hold. So yeah, that's one of it is a ritual. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of things. And I often give advice on how to regain focus, in the day so that you can be more productive. And a lot of what you said, I've talked about, with totally different purpose, but it's interesting how there's so much overlap there. I mean,
it's
to
all
me,
connected.
It wasn't obvious at first that they would be connected, but maybe it is obvious to you with your experience.
Well, no, it's all beautiful. It's all part of the process. And I think, again, learning a little bit more of this, like we're a part of such a bigger thing than our 3D like mind can understand. God made all of this. Like we're part of one thing. And so it's like, it is all connected. And whether we realize it or not, like even this summer, I've deconditioned from the hustle, and that's what I've really been focusing on, because I think we do live in such a dysregulated world. Like our whole world is dysregulated. So I'm really going against the grain with this work, but it's so needed in this world. Again, armoring up with the armor of God, it's really interesting. It's an interesting process.
All right, ladies, I'm going to stop the interview at this spot, and we're going to continue with the rest of it in the next episode. So that will be episode 68. Now, you're not going to want to miss that one because we get into a lively discussion about our differing perspectives on what life balance really means and some primary factors that influence balance. And it's going to be a really great one, especially if you're a working mom and you're looking for some really great ways to build in grounding techniques to help manage stress, overstimulation, anxiety, and burnout in your life. So I hope you join me for that next episode, and until then, keep living that ambitious mom life. I hope today's episode will help you create time and freedom to pursue something you love to do. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and tell other purpose-driven mamas about it. Who knows? You might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. I'll see you next week for another episode of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life with Anoki Kapasi.